This is the She Dares to Travel podcast, and I am your host, Raquel Pollock. After spending a decade managing the #1 travel agency in Canada, I am now here to connect you to women that are taking the travel industry by storm, as well as female business professionals that also have a passion for travel, just like me. We are here to inspire, uplift, and motivate you to not only follow, but plan out your dreams, no matter where in the world they may be. And of course, this wouldn't be possible without our sponsor, Staples Studio, where I am currently recording from. Check them out on their website, studio.staples.ca. It truly is a new approach to co-working with community at its heart. There's access to hot desks, meeting, and event spaces all across North America. So thank you, Staples Studio, for connecting us and sponsoring this podcast. And thank you for listening. Enjoy, be sure to subscribe, and follow along. Thank you to Hotel Z Kelowna, Victoria, and Tofino for being our sponsor. You can also save 15% off your next getaway using the code DARES2, DARES 2, the number 2, at hotelz.com. These funky and unique hotels are in British Columbia, and they're going to have you not wanting to leave while you're on your next vacation. Enjoy. Hello, all you daredevils. Thank you for joining us today on another episode. I am excited to be chatting with Joanna Jagger today. She is very passionate about making change within the tourism industry. And what she does with her association is president of association called WORTH. And that stands for Women of Recreation, Tourism, and Hospitality. She aims to move the dial for gender equity, especially in leadership roles within the tourism industry. WORTH was incorporated in 2018, and it provides networking, mentorship, education, and leadership development. She also is an instructor in the School of Tourism Management at Capilano University. At CapU, she teaches human resources, organizational behavior. She helps students identify their career passion and potential. And she's also held leadership roles in sales, catering, and human resources at top hospitality brands, including Marriott International, Shangri-La Hotels, Sequoia Company of Restaurants, and Joe Fortes Seafood and Chophouse. She's a chartered professional in human resources. She provides HR solutions to individuals and organizations through her consulting practice, Adanac HR Services, and she has a Provincial Instructor's Diploma from VCC and a Master's in Leadership from Royal Roads University. Joanna, that is a mouthful, but so great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
Great.
Yes.
So happy to be joining you, and you're always following all the crazy things you're up to, whether it's travel or events, or you're growing your women entrepreneurship brand, and I love it. It's great to be with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And whereabouts are you calling in from today?
I am calling in from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Salish, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, also known as North Vancouver, where I live with my husband, 2 kids, and we've been here about 3 years. It's a great community here in North Vancouver. We were in East Vancouver before. That's kind of where I've been most of my working years.
Nice. Have you always been a BC girl?
I was born in Winnipeg, but as we say, I came as soon as I could. So I moved to BC when I was about 5 years old, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. And I'm not one for cold weather, so I can't imagine had my parents stayed in Winnipeg how that would have worked for me for long term. But
Winter peg. As you say that, I can see out my window in Kelowna here, snow coming down the mountain. Slowly. It's starting.
I love skiing. I love the mountains, but I'm a pretty fair weather person myself.
Love it. Good place to be. So what's your background for college, university? I know we mentioned a little bit of it, but elaborate it for us.
Well, I went to UBC for my undergraduate. At the time I was working in restaurants. I started working in restaurants in high school, and I was pursuing a career. I thought maybe I'd be a chef. I thought maybe I'd work as a flight attendant. Like I had all these different ideas. And then I thought, okay, I should be an elementary school teacher. And actually some of my travels took me to places like South Africa. So I taught in townships of South Africa. I taught kids in the private schools of Vancouver. And I just came to the realization, like, kids are kids, and I don't know if this is for me. So I went back to school after my undergraduate. I decided not to go into the teacher program, and I pursued human resources with BCIT, and then to VCC for my Provincial Instructor's Diploma. And 8 years ago or so, I started a master's degree with Royal Roads University in leadership studies. So I've been really a lifelong student. And of course, now I teach adults, which is a little different than, elementary school students. But I have a really great gig because I get to be connected to the tourism industry, the restaurant space, hospitality. However, I'm, getting to be in that educator role.
It's really interesting for a lot of women that I speak to of how they wind up in tourism. And a lot of the time it takes your passion of what it is, which is obviously teaching, when working with people, and then helping connect it into tourism. So it's really neat how your journey led you there. So as you teach in tourism, what are the type of things that your students are learning?
I'm fortunate in that my background is human resources. So I was working with, like you said in the early part of the show, the HR world of Marriott Hotels, where I really learned a lot about HR. I was with Sequoia company of restaurants. And what would happen is students would come from Capilano University to our hotel. They'd come for tours. They'd come for their co-op. And so I started to spend some time with the students, and then I spent some time on campus as well. And I was like, this is fantastic. So I'm lucky to teach all the upper level human resources courses, organizational behavior. I teach an entrepreneurship class from time to time, but really my specialization is HR, which I think even if students aren't going to pursue a path in human resources, they're going to be in some kind of capacity where they're leading and need to know employment standards. They need to know about recruitment. So I really enjoy what I teach.
Awesome. And with the travels that you've done previously, where do you think you've been? And actually, recreational travels too. Where do you think's one of the most special places that you've been, or one of your favorite?
I've been really lucky to travel quite a bit. I even in high school, we were given opportunities to go to Costa Rica and Fiji, and that was through a culinary arts program I was in as a young cook. And so I really got the bug early and spent a year backpacking with my best friend. And in later years, I tried to go on as many adventures as possible. The one stands out for me was going to Japan with my little kids at the time. It was pretty wild to do this. Like, I don't know, there's something different about traveling with young kids. So it was a real, accomplishment in the end that we got through it. But that's just such a special country. South Africa, like I mentioned, that's where I did my university exchange. That place forever has my heart. And there's it's like picking a favorite kid. There's so many special places. But if I could jump on a plane tomorrow and go anywhere in the world, I'd go back to South Africa. That's a pretty special place.
That sounds like it. What's your favorite thing to do when you're there?
Well, I was pretty young at the time. I'd like to go back with a little bit more limit on my Visa card so I could go and do much more dining and like things I didn't do when I was a student there. Like there's a really good food scene, really fantastic wine community. I would try that again, but I really just enjoyed the nightlife, the vibrancy of the city of Cape Town, just the beauty. It's such a special spot. And then of course, like you're in this fantastic part of the world where safaris are available to you. And so you're really in the wild. And that experience was hands down one of my top 10 experiences to date. That's like cross that off the bucket list early in my life, but I'd love to do that again.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I haven't been out to South Africa yet. It's on the list, the never-ending bucket list that keeps growing, obviously. But the safaris are way up there too, with the different types you can do and what you can see. My mother-in-law went a few years ago, and she said same thing. It's like one of the best things she's ever done, and she's traveled all over. So really, really neat in that regard. With your career where you're at now, and where did the idea come from to start Worth Association? How did that come to be?
Yeah, it was, I think every woman I know has a story of working in this industry and having something that wasn't quite right, didn't feel quite right, some microaggression, comment, joke, and then all the way to like severe, sexual harassment. And so, it's always been on my mind as I worked in the industry and kind of building this thick skin or being made to feel that that was the way to do it. And I was in the director of HR position with Marriott Hotels, watching a lot of women resign and watching them in kind of their mid-career. They had management experience. They were close to getting that director role, but they just said, I'm going to go find a new industry now, or I'm going to leave this industry for various reasons. And that could be family, that could be burnout, that could be not enjoying the culture that they were in or the environment or their manager. But I just thought, what a shame. And I was looking around at some of the hotel GMs and I saw so few women. I looked around the women chefs, I saw so few women. And I was pursuing my master's in leadership, and I started to look for some data and research around women in leadership positions in tourism, hospitality. And then I found very little, like there's not even a lot of research or study or conversation, but we have a larger pool of women to draw from. It's a female dominated industry, but we're just not seeing the numbers at the top. So we're seeing women in executive roles at about like 6 to 8%. So it was a real opportunity to say, let's bring together women who have really made it in their career. They're real role models of tourism, hospitality, and recreation. Let's plan an event where they can tell their stories. So I had a baby at home, and I was kind of just decided, like that. My joke is I only started Worth because I was on mat leave and I had time where nobody else working in tourism hospitality has time to do these things. And I brought together this event. The idea, when I like put it together, I was like, no, who's going to come? Is this going to be of interest? Well, we had like 50 people on the wait list to even get in the doors. We were so thrilled by kind of the reception. And then we started hosting that event in Whistler, in Kelowna, in Victoria, and it kind of grew from there. Just this event called Empower Her.
Wow.
To where we are 5 years down the road. It's the association I needed when I was 19, 20, 25. I really wish I had an association like Worth that would have supported me through mentorship, leadership education, networking events. We are really the professional women's network for the industry where there was none before. So I'm really proud of that fact. And we have a lot more work to do.
Wow. And so how many people are attending your events now?
Depends on the city. On November 6th, we'll have 450 people at Yes Chef. That's our event to elevate women in the culinary and food and beverage landscape. So each chef is paired with a young woman identifying culinary student from Pacific Institute of Culinary Arts. So there's a mentorship relationship, and we'll have 20 stations with female winemakers, brewers, chefs, sommeliers. So fantastic female talent, and building in that mentorship component. Some of our events are a little bit smaller. We'll do like socials and mingles where we see 50 people in the room, but we're reaching about 5,000 women in the province right now through our events and engagements online.
That's amazing. That is something to be really proud of, especially coming from, 50 people attending and then growing within 5 years to almost 500. It's amazing. And it sounds like the feedback that you're getting from it is something that it is needed. It's needed in this industry. It's something to empower the women within tourism to know that they can accomplish, leadership roles and do more, and to make sure that they are treated fairly. I think that's so important. So important. Because, we've been to conferences. We see that this still is something which is mind-boggling. I was talking to someone the other day how it's sad, really. It's really sad that in the tourism industry, women still have to push harder or work harder and get paid less. And it's something that I didn't really know until I started going to these conferences. So it's amazing that you're bringing it to light for everyone. It really is. So with the association, where do you see it going? What's your goal for the next 5 years? What would you like to see from it?
A great question. We had a fantastic strategic planning session we have a board of advisors, we have an executive board, we have a lot of fantastic volunteer support to propel what we do. It really is a labor of love. It's something that we do off the side of our desk. And that's what I'd like to change, is that it's no longer kind of a passion project as much as it's really a business that we see growing across the country. I know that we're planning a conference for spring of 2024. And that's where I really see the opportunity to move the dial. So conference and supporting our research, which we do a lot of. So I really want to be the driving force for not just educating, elevating, and empowering women, but advocating in spaces, which we've done. We started to do this year. We're talking about pay, and the pay gap is really significant, not only in British Columbia, but for our industry. We see women getting paid 77 cents on the dollar for roles in accommodation management. We see restaurant management making 85 cents to the dollar. So research that we were putting together took us right to the Parliament buildings to meet with David Eby, our premier, to talk about pay transparency legislation. So we're really proud that Worth was behind some of that movement to ensure that our industry is advertising their salaries, not asking women about their previous pay. We know entry-level roles in the industry can be very, very lean, but I always remind women that those senior roles, there's a lot of opportunity and money that comes with it. And as you advance your career, So we need to kind of level the playing field so that women aren't starting their career disadvantaged. And especially women of color and new Canadians, they're seeing a lot less pay right out the gate. So we want to be part of that advocacy to change that, which has been popular by some employers for sure. That's been controversial, our efforts there. Why wouldn't we as an industry want to remedy some of those reputational things as an industry for employment? You know, we do have a reputation of being long hours, hard work, low pay. And I can tell you after all the research, it's not low pay when you get into senior roles or management roles. So we need to kind of shift that a little bit. And it starts with pay transparency. Because for me, I don't know if you were in the same role. When I knew what my boss made, that motivated me to work hard and say, okay, I want that job one day. I'm the supervisor. I want to be the manager. I'm the manager. I want to be the director. I'm the director. I want to be the general manager. And that's where women, that's where Worth's role comes in. We want to see more women embracing that ambition and being really mindful of how far they can go in this industry as far as they'd like to. And that's the beauty of tourism and hospitality and recreation.
So true. I absolutely love that. And that resonates because I had a conversation with a woman high up at a bank actually recently. And she is passionate as well about equity for women, but also the hard thing I think, and you can attest to this, is that sometimes, you know, as a woman, we just don't know what's available to us. And when it comes to a man, it's so much easier for them. They're, you know, they don't overthink things as much as, you know, we tend to do. But when it comes to pay, it's something about having that conversation and being confident in that conversation and saying, well, you know, this is how much I would like to make. Is that possible? Okay, how do I get to that? What do I need to do to get to that? So it's the education in that I think is powerful, not just in tourism, but in so many different industries. It's special. It's really special that it's something that you're doing and bringing to the forefront too, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. With the women that you've met, are there any stories off the top of your head that you'd want to share on how your association has really impacted them?
Yeah, you know, I think pay and negotiating salaries is the one we hear a lot of. We've run workshops on negotiating salaries, and you know, self-advocacy, advocating for your own self, the women on your team. We hear that a lot, just women empowered to speak up a little bit more, to say, you know, that didn't really feel right. I didn't really like that joke you made in this meeting, or I'm uncomfortable with this policy. There's one great story where a woman on our board challenged the decor and aesthetic of a room which featured the silhouette of naked women, and said, I'm not going to sell this room anymore. And these are the small things that women in our network are saying, like, yeah, we're really not okay with this. And this is a little bit of Worth, but a little bit of the generational mindset coming in, the effects of Me Too, the post-COVID-19 landscape, where we saw women lose the hardest hit of losing the most jobs, especially young women and women of color. I think there's this emboldenment that we're trying to support women with, where it's saying, how do you change your culture in your organization to be more equitable? We've seen a lot of movement with our industry associations pull in board parity for gender for individuals, racialized individuals. 50-30 challenge is one thing that we've seen, where boards are saying we should have 50% women and 30% representation of people of color. So we're a little bit pushing that, the catalyst behind that a little bit, but I think there's also other things at play. But I truly do get goosebumps every time I get an email from a woman that's come to one of our events who's shared with us something they've done that day, pushing for more generous mat leave policies, pushing for employee resource group, setting up their own employee network within. So we've seen little measurements of change. And, you know, I think that's for us what kind of continues to keep us motivated to do this work.
How do you think we compare as a nation compared to other places in the world, or even just, you know, in North America? How does Canada stack up when it comes to the change that's being made? Do you see it, maybe we're ahead of other places, or, you know, we all need to do a lot of work?
I'm in a global women's hospitality alliance. So organizations like Worth, we meet every quarter from people all over the world. It's really interesting to hear what other women's organizations in the tourism hospitality landscape are doing. It's I would say that it's pretty universal in our challenges across the board. Canada, I do know that some of our pay challenges are more significant from what I've heard from other groups. The pay gap is more pronounced. We also have higher levels of harassment. We don't have a lot of studies, unfortunately, to really speak with absolute certainty. And that's another opportunities. So I would say that probably most of us are struggling with some of the same challenges. One great thing that's come out of Worth is the opportunity to do some research. So we created a gender equity audit called Seat at the Table with Capilano University, wearing both my hats. And then 4VI on Vancouver Island supported a policy brief where Worth was behind 10 recommendations. And we did a big study with 400 women to gain some insights on recommendations around things like collecting more data and around things related to pay and policy within organizations to make sure that we have more opportunities for women. Even, professional development and things that maybe in the past or traditionally have been more accessible for a lot of men. We need to, make sure that the women are getting access to these professional development opportunities. And I say that having been to a lot of these golf tournaments where I look around and I go, wow, this is not where I want to see the women of recreation, tourism, hospitality, for their career development and their networking opportunities. We need to find something for people to get in a room and have that access to education.
So true. So true. And it's an interesting thing with golf too, because golf has always been a very manly sport. It's very male dominated. And when I started in commercial insurance, I was like, I'll be damned if I don't know how to golf, because everyone makes deals on the golf course, or they network, or there's so much opportunity in that way. So I took some golf lessons, of course, just to make sure. But I agree with you. It's where do we find the opportunity and how do we make and create more space for women to connect, but also to do exactly what you're doing, be empowered. What do you think is one big tip you can give to someone that is looking to get their pay increased or have that difficult conversation?
I think it's just doing your homework. We often love through Worth is women meeting their counterparts at different organizations, different hotels, different restaurants, and having that open conversation. We're conditioned as women to not really speak about money and not really talk about ambition as much. And I want to throw that out the window and make sure that that's something that's more normalized and encouraged. So that's one thing that, going with your homework and understanding what the scale and the city is paying. And I will say that, there is information out there and you can find online, et cetera. But what we want to make sure we're also encouraging women to do is to really track and measure their accomplishments, not being shy to speak to what they've done to improve sales or improve policy or change metrics within their organization, because that's something that, again, women, it's well documented, well researched, what women have a harder time speaking to their own accomplishments. And so we want to make sure that women feel really proud of what they've done in this industry. And it's not an easy industry. It takes a lot of hard work and it takes a lot of grit. And so when you're in that room with your boss or supervisor or GM, you should be able to speak to how that grit and hard work translated into success for the bottom line. So that, I think also just asking. A lot of women never ask. When I was in a director of HR position, an HR manager position, I can tell you the amount of women who negotiated their salary on one hand, and I offered hundreds of jobs. It just was so common for women to accept the first offer when I knew I had wiggle room and I was waiting for them to negotiate. And so that's kind of again, where this pay transparency, when we see the bands, women will go into these interviews knowing what the range is and it's going to make a big difference.
Huge difference. Yeah, that's amazing. And it's really mind blowing, really, that it's still something that is at the forefront for us to be pushing towards when it comes to the pay gaps. What would you say with the different roles you've done in tourism? What do you think the hardest role you've had has been?
Oyster shucker.
Ooh.
Oyster shucker in my 20s. I was because I had to be, because there were so many. That was the one job that I was back like, how did I survive that? I was
with all your fingers too, right?
With all my fingers, with the minimal scars. And I had a weird station at the boathouse in White Rock where I was responsible for desserts, salads, and oysters. Really not the most food safe station now that I look back. That's where I was stationed, and that's where I was $9 an hour. I worked my butt off at this huge restaurant. And then I started at Joe Forte's and Seafood and Chophouse. And that job really changed my life. And they hired me to be a hostess and an oyster shucker on the weekends. And so I was opening like 2,000 oysters a night at the oyster bar. But that really was the company that led me to management. They supported my vision of setting up a catering branch called Joe Caters. And so we started doing offsites where we were doing, I was shucking oysters at private parties and events.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that was kind of the catalyst for me to start getting into this idea of, entrepreneurship in a small way, because that was my vision of the subsidiary of the company, and also just management and starting to lead people and lead teams. And I became the sales manager in that role. So as much as oyster shucking was not my favorite, it led to really great things. So I guess that's a bit of advice. It's like, say yes to certain opportunities and see what comes from them.
It leads me into the next question of, what do you think the best piece of advice you've gotten is while being in the tourism industry?
Get out of your own way. I think that was the best advice I had. So, there's the origin story of Worth is certainly working through some of the mistakes I've made or the errors I made in terms of my own career development, accepting really low pay in certain roles, enduring sexual harassment on the job and not speaking up, certain things that are probably, when I say I want this association for the 19-year-old me, there's something I'm probably working through there. But when there was one thing for me that I was so terrified of certain opportunities. It really scared me to put my hand up to be in senior leadership roles or take that job or switch companies. And I would just make every excuse in the book not to pursue opportunities and pursue a path in leadership or speak up or whatever it was. And so this idea, get out of your own way was really helpful for me. What am I doing? Why am I putting so many barriers? And that's what we're doing at Worth too. It's like taking risks and not playing small. And I think I did that for a long time in my career. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to see women in our industry do that anymore, because there's every reason to talk yourself out of an opportunity. And, we've heard this 1,000 times, I'm sure. It's like men will apply for a job when they're 60% qualified, but women sit there and want to be 100% qualified. So I kept going back to school or getting more certifications or training or whatever when I was more than ready in certain times, and just let those opportunities pass me by.
So true. It's such good advice. It makes me think too, when I was managing the travel agency, I would have people on my sales team and they would say things like, well, I don't know. I don't want to work on that file because I've never sent anyone to this place before. I don't know anything about the destination. When I ask, I clam up. I don't know what to say. And then I remind them, I'm like, all you have to tell them is you'll find out. No one's ever going to get mad if you don't know an answer. And if they do, well, maybe you should have been a little more prepared if it was a presentation or something like that. But for the most part, people are really receptive to you finding it out. And I agree with you. I see it in my industry too, right now, just when it comes to women. And I hear it where a guy's like, oh yeah, I'll try that. Let's just figure it out. And then the woman's like, ooh, well, I've got to research that a bit more. I need to look at this more. Ooh, I thought about it, but oh no, there's some limitations there. And I don't know how we get over that. I don't know how besides just doing it and creating a new habit, maybe, or new reaction.
And I think mentorship comes in a big way there too. And, we're proud to feature a mentorship program a couple times a year at Worth. And we've seen big gains from women that, you need champions and sponsors in your corner. And women just need to be more supportive of other women as well, so that when you're having a conversation with your colleague or friend, you start to hear that kind of doubt and negative speak and everything. You just, you need to speak to yourself the way you would speak to your best friend. And so we're really trying to cultivate that idea of a network where women are really encouraged to sing the praise of other women when they're not in the room.
I love that. What do you think job-wise out there right now, you feel there should be more women in that role in tourism?
So sorry, say that question again. I feel there should be more women in leadership.
In leadership. Okay.
Yeah. That's the goal, is really elevating women and encouraging, and whatever that ambition is, right? It doesn't have to be that you're the GM of 6 hotel properties. It's really just, what is your ambition and how do we get you there? We're in a real, crossroads for the industry where there are so many challenges. There are so many challenges that the industry is up against, and especially coming out of COVID-19. We want to make sure that there are far more women as management, supervisors, directors, because I think there's a beautiful energy that women bring to leadership. in terms of collaboration, communication, mentorship support. We want to make sure that this industry thrives. And so by retaining and developing women in these roles, we're supporting cultures where we have people thinking through different lenses. We know there's, of course, studies about profitability if you have a diverse team. We want to make sure that new Canadians and newcomers and women of color thrive in the industry and find themselves in senior leadership roles, as opposed to just being in that like sticky floor thing where they come into the industry and stay in those entry-level roles for their whole career. I believe really strongly that one of the big answers to our labor crisis comes from retaining and developing women. And I think a lot of conferences and conversations around about what's our solution to the labor crisis, and nobody's really looking within and starting to say, it's a lot of conversations on where to find people to work. I keep saying and reminding people, like, women are here. Women 15 to 24 make up the most of our industry in terms of labor, and then we let them go. So how do we support that women in their entry phases of their career? And even if they pursue a different path outside of tourism and hospitality, how can we get them leading and understanding this idea of confidence and supporting customer relationships and negotiating big deals for hotel sale, whatever it is. Like, that is such a fantastic opportunity we have to take that new generation and support their development. And that's where I see if we all thought about fostering this idea of mentorship and development at the early stages of career, we would retain more women into their mid-career and then their senior leadership years.
That's really important, really important. And it's so interesting to hear you say that. And I love the vision of Worth. I love where you're going with it. And it just makes sense that it's so needed. And I feel like this can be adopted in so many different industries, not just tourism. But it's amazing how much it's grown and how much you've done with it. Who would you say has been your biggest mentor through this journey?
It's funny. I have so many. I am in such a privileged position that I get to meet and connect and interview and support, especially through Empower Her, find these awesome panelists to come speak about their careers. So I've learned from so many women in their senior roles. I'm really fortunate to have an advisory board spearheaded by Marianne Harper Truskin. She was the GM of the Park and JW Douglas Properties, and she recently retired, and she now supports Worth as the chair of our advisory board. I'm learning a lot from her. I learn a lot from Trina Notman and Mandy Farmer of Accent Inns, who kind of the front row feminists. I learn a lot from men in the industry. I certainly had a lot of male mentors in my life in the restaurant industry and in the hotel community. And so, for me, I'm collecting mentors as I go through this. And, I would say the executive board at Worth, like, I learned so much from the women on my team, whether they bring skills from the event side, the marketing side, the educational side. Like, we just have this great team and an operations manager who know their stuff. And so they're my mentors. I don't have the passwords to our Instagram account because, like, heaven forbid I ever post something, I would somehow make an error there. So I watch, Caitlin, do this magic with her branding and marketing, and that's leadership, right? I started Worth. I made a lot of mistakes because I was trying to do it all myself. And now I've built this team of awesome women. And we're always looking for more women in the tourism, hospitality, recreation space to support what we do. But that's where the rich learning happens.
Amazing. You should be very proud of everything you've done. And with everything you've done, what would you say your most proudest moment would be?
I guess just like starting it would be, I'm really proud of that. There was a lot of, I think, speaking openly, like, it hasn't really been an easy path. There are early days to get support, to get funding, to even get a seat at the table was not easy. I didn't feel that we were recognized as anything more than just like a girl gang. And we've worked really hard to be a legitimate advocacy body of the industry. There's 42 industry associations in BC's tourism landscape. And for us, we want to be a prominent one because we have the same shared goals as most others, which is supporting our labor force and making sure that we have really capable people at the helm to grow the industry. So for me, that's the proudest, and I'm sure you can relate, just saying like, hey, let's do this. And beyond just the one event or the two events, it just started to kind of grow. And that's what I'm really proud of. And we hired somebody full-time this year, and we've taken some big risks. Like those are proud moments for all of us at the association.
Good for you. That's awesome. What's your ask of us? What is your ask of whoever is listening when it comes to women of worth? What's your ask for everyone?
I would love to check us out and get involved. It's a free membership. You can check us out on worthassociation.com or on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and support this idea of advocacy. And that's all of us. We all have to kind of speak up and make sure that we're actively dismantling the patriarchy around us, however that looks. Like we're actively supporting this idea of equity, diversity, inclusion in our organizations. We want the industry, we all want this industry to succeed. And so it takes every man, woman, non-binary folks to move the dial. And I think a lot of us have just been conditioned to accept this is the way it is. This is the way that, that creepy guy in the back always has been the creepy guy in the back, and we just let him say what he wants to say and make women feel uncomfortable. Like, no, we don't do that anymore. And so this idea of just accepting the norm or the status quo in our industry, we need to change that. And I say that as somebody who started her career as a cook. What I saw and experienced and witnessed in 25 years ago to now, it's the tide is turning, but it takes people to speaking up, and culture shift is hard. But we have to keep pressing it and pushing for it, because none of us, especially those of us in our older years in the industry, we don't want women to kind of go through the same things we did. And I'm sure we speak about that universally. Like there's some weird barriers in this industry that are put up for women, and it's our job to kind of take those down so that the next generation coming in doesn't have to put up with that BS.
Absolutely. I heard this saying at a women's conference I was just at, and it's that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and it's the women that have paved the way for us to get where we are today, because it's changed, like you said, in the past 25 years, 50 years, it's changed so much. And what we do today is going to continue to change for the women of the future too, especially in this industry. So thank you so much. I know you mentioned a little bit before, just reiterate your where people can find you.
Sure. worthassociation.com, at worth.association on Instagram. Check us out on LinkedIn, whichever platform you prefer. We're always sharing fantastic resources. If you sign up to be a member, which is completely free, you'll get a monthly newsletter with resources, interviews with women of worth, and just check us out. And I'm sure there's something there on our website that will resonate with you. And we have our mentorship program, Yes Chef for women in culinary in November, a conference in the spring, and something called Worth Academy coming up in January, where we'll be visiting various cities to do a 12-week leadership development course online and in person. So there's so much coming down the pipeline for us. There's no rest at Worth. We're just continuing to push to make change in the industry, and we need people along for the ride for that.
Awesome. Well, any way I can help support, I will. Thank you so much for spending the time this morning with us, and keep on the good fight. Keep going. I love it. Thank you to Hotel Z Kelowna, Victoria, and Tofino for being our sponsor. You can also save 15% off your next getaway using the code DARES2, DARES 2, the number 2, at hotelz.com. These funky and unique hotels are in British Columbia, and they're going to have you not wanting to leave while you're on your next vacation. Enjoy. If you like this episode, please subscribe, download a few more, and leave a review. I really would love to hear from you, what you enjoyed and what your key takeaways were. And of course, please let me know if there's any aspect of the travel industry you want me to talk about next. You can also search for the hashtag #SheDaresToTravelPodcast on Instagram and comment on the episode's post with your questions. I'd love to answer them all for you guys. I hope you enjoy your day, stay so well, and until next time, fly straight.